All right, guys, today is our first lesson of stuff that we did not address in class. Because we hadn't addressed the westward movement and all the territories that the United States added past the Mississippi, when I loaded all of those sheets all together for the first 3 weeks, I loaded the notes. The notes look like this, and it's on every territory, and you should have gotten this side and this side, okay? But what I'm going to do is just go through them with you. Here is, I'm going to flip this around. Here is a great picture of the territories added to the United States. Okay, if you can see over where E is on the far right, those are the first 13 colonies. And then where B is labeled, that's where the United States was in 1783 before any of this expansion happened. What we're going to talk about today is Florida, Texas, the Louisiana Purchase, which is that big white area, the Oregon Territory, which is labeled C, and the California Territory, which is labeled F. The Gadsden Purchase is G, and right there at the tippy top, D, that's part that was ceded or given to the United States when Britain and the United States decided that the territory between Canada and the United States would be divided on the 49th parallel, that straight line, if you can see that straight line that divides the United States and Canada. Okay, I'm going to flip this back around now. Okay, so the first territory that we added, the striped one, up to the Mississippi River is what we had in 1783. The blank one, the Louisiana Purchase, was added when Thomas Jefferson was president. He bought that territory from Napoleon Bonaparte in 1803. We paid about $15 million for it, which comes out to only a couple cents an acre, which is a crazy low amount of money. Every year I get the question, well, how much would that cost today? Well, you would have to add up the cost of all the buildings, all the roads, all the homes. I would say that it's pretty much priceless. So Jefferson got a pretty good deal on that. The Louisiana Territory doubled the size of the United States. And Thomas Jefferson hired Lewis and Clark to explore it. Lewis and Clark started their expedition at the Missouri River. So I'm gonna flip this around again and show you. So the Missouri Rivers, they're gonna start about right here, okay? This is where the Mississippi and the Missouri meet. And they're gonna flow out as far as they can and eventually cross the Rockies and make it all the way to the Columbia River and the Pacific Ocean, okay? So this white part you can see is the Louisiana Purchase, and it doubled the size of the United States. So now we have everything to the right of that white area, not the polka dots, not the squares, and not the shaded area, everything to the right. So Lewis and Clark started their expedition at the Missouri River, and they went all the way to the Pacific Ocean. They took 18 men with them. One of the men that went with them was a slave of Clark's, and his name was York. I'm sure you've heard the stories of Sacagawea, and she guided these explorers. She knew Indian languages, and English, so she could communicate with the Indian tribes as they went west, and she could communicate with Lewis and Clark and the other men in the expedition. Some of the Native Americans knew the westward overland routes, and Sacagawea kept everyone from starving because she knew what plants they could eat and what plants they couldn't. She also kept them from being killed by Indian tribes because these tribes were not afraid of men who allowed themselves to be led by women. they thought that they were not a threat. Sacagawea also had a baby boy on the journey, and she kept it on her back. Okay, let's talk about the next territory. I'm going to flip this around to show you again. The next territory is Florida. Florida is down below the X's. It's labeled I. Spain gave Florida this territory in the Adams-Onis Treaty in 1819. The United States made Florida an official state in 1821. Florida actually had 3 flags that flew over it by the time it became a state. It was Spanish, English, and then it became part of the United States. Texas is the next territory. Texas is not shaped like the state of Texas. It's the state of Texas and a little bit more, okay? So Texas was, in 1820, the United States asked Spain for the Texas territory, but Spain said no. Spain did agree to allow Americans to settle and farm on the Texas territory. They were growing cotton there, and they were making the Americans wanted to move, and they said, sure, you can move there and plant cotton. While Spain was agreeing to let Americans settle in Texas, Spain lost a war to Mexico, and then all of a sudden, Texas became Mexico's territory, and Mexico took control of Texas. When the Mexicans took control, the Americans outnumbered the Mexicans. When the Americans disobeyed Mexican laws, they were seen as starting a revolt. Due to the fact that Americans outnumbered Mexicans and were disobeying Mexico laws, Mexico and America went to war with America, defeating Mexico in 1836. The war was being fought, but the leaders of Texas signed a Texas Declaration of Independence, making Texas an independent country. So while this war was going on, the people who lived in Texas said, we don't want to be part of America. We want to be our own country. So they signed a treaty declaring Texas's independence. Once the war was over, Texas decided that they wanted to join the United States as a slave state, meaning a state that could own slaves. And but the northern states said Texas could only join if they were a free state. Texas turned down that request. However, once Texas threatened to join France, Spain, or England as part of their countries, the United States quickly let Texas join the Union as a slave state in 1845. Can you imagine if Texas was part of like England or Spain or France right here in the United States? That would be really weird. Mexico threatened to declare war if Texas was to be admitted into the United States. They didn't, and Texas is the only state to join the United States after first being an independent nation all by itself. That's why the nickname is the Lone Star State. So they were their own little country before they joined the United States. Kind of cool. All right, the next territory is the Oregon Territory. I'm going to flip this around again and show you. The Oregon Territory is labeled C. The state of Oregon, Washington, Idaho, up in that area today. This area was very popular with trappers and farmers and loggers. You can imagine the big trees that are still there. In 1846, Britain gave up its claim to the Oregon Territory and divided the territory on the 49th parallel with the United States. Many people moved to the Oregon Territory in order to get beavers. Remember, we talked about how fashionable beaver skin was and fur, so they wanted that. In 1840, pioneers started moving westward along the Oregon Trail. Now, when I flip this around, notice the line at the top of the United States. that is a straight line. It's a straight line because of that 1846 agreement to split Canada and the United States there. That's the 49th line of latitude that they split that on. Okay, the last territory that the United States added was California territory. California territory has the boxes, so it's the state of California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, in that area. Okay, due to the United States admitting Texas into the Union, Mexico started a war with the United States. The United States declares war on Mexico in 1846. In 1848, the United States defeated Mexico, so that war lasted for about 2 years. In the surrender treaty, they gave the United States nearly 2 million acres of land, and that becomes California and those other states that I showed you. Okay, one of my friends that used to teach at Berkeley, and then he was our assistant principal, Ed Van Dyke, came up with this picture, and I use it every year, and I included it in your packet. It should be the last page in your packet, and it's a hand. And he used to call it Talk to the Hand. And you've got the territories there. The Louisiana Purchase is the palm, and it says it doubled in size, and it was bought during Jefferson's term. The smallest territory was Florida, so it's on the pinky. Florida, Spain gave Florida to the United States in a treaty. That was the Adams-Onis Treaty. Then you have Texas. It was added after becoming an independent nation first. Oregon, divided by the U.S. and Great Britain. And California was given to 2 million acres given to us when Mexico surrendered. The worksheet that you need to do to turn in by Friday looks like this. All of the answers can be found in the notes that I just gave to you. Okay, so this is the sheet that I'm looking for Tuesday's assignment with the territories, addition of territories. I just want to say that I have gotten a lot of great feedback from parents and students about what's working, what's not working with these lessons. And I know that this isn't optimal, and yes, I would like to be in the classroom and seeing you all every day rather than doing this and putting them on a YouTube channel. But this is what's working for us right now. This video will be loaded by tonight, and I'm going to do the second one. The second one is on why people started to go west. Both worksheets, the one I just showed you and the one that will be in the next video, should be turned in by Friday. If you haven't caught up on the first 3 weeks or the first 2 weeks because I was so late in getting stuff done, that's okay. Just keep going and do as much as you can. But know that I miss you all very much, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.